So thank you all for joining us for the Georgetown McDonough Flex MBA Online Summit, Student Experience and McDonough Career Center panel. My name is Breon Ransom, and I'm the Senior Assistant Director of MBA Admissions Flex MBA Online. And during our time together, you'll hear about the student experience from current MBA students, and following shortly after, you'll hear from our Career Center. They'll touch on their resources and some information about the recruiting process. I hope you're ready to receive some super insightful and beneficial information, especially if you have applied to our program or just gathering details. There's a lot in store for you this evening. So also, if you have questions, please utilize the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we'll get to those questions that you have shortly after the panel. So let's get started with this evening's programming. On the panel, we have Greg Golding, Jessica Demirji, and Storm McPherson Anderson. Now, just kicking off with those questions, I'd like you to introduce yourself, share your background, and the motivation that you have on why you pursued an MBA degree at McDonough. And we could start with Jessica, and then to Storm, and then to Gregory.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica. Prior to the MBA, I was working in biotech. So I was a scientist in vaccine development at the NIH. What inspired me to get an MBA is that I really found myself enjoying the business aspects of what I was doing. It was I had very little exposure, so I wanted more exposure on the business side of things, and specifically marketing. So that's what brought me to McDonough.
Hello, everyone. My name is Storm Anderson. I work in medical sales right now. I've worked in pharmaceuticals, medical device sales, for the past 5 years. I am a Flex MBA student, and I chose to pursue an MBA background because my undergrad was not focused in business. And I feel like McDonough placed me into the right program to really focus and grow my business background for an international career, either with a biopharmaceutical company or a medical device company.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Golding. I have a long history with Georgetown. Actually, I graduated as an undergrad in 2017. After that, I went to Deloitte for a few years and worked with federal clients on analytics-related projects. After a couple of years there, I realized I really missed being on campus, and I decided to take my skills to the admissions office at McDonough, actually, for a graduate program. So I do analytics for MBA admissions as well as some of our other degree programs. I am actually pursuing the MBA to advance my career here at McDonough. So I came from a very technical background, and I wanted to learn how to become more of an analytics leader and not an engineer.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. That was great. And it was great to hear, like, where you are and why you're there, and kind of how you started. Also, so what surprised you the most about the program when you started? I know we always have like expectations of how things would be like, before we actually started, even if it's like a super like high, like long-term goal or short-term goal. So kind of like what surprised you the most about the MBA program at McDonough?
Yeah, I can take that. What surprised me the most was how much of a community it really is. When I had, especially coming from the pandemic and we all worked from home and everybody was home, it was very different for me to be in a space with a bunch of people all at once again. And I was definitely nervous about it, but I quickly found how close-knit the community was and how collaborative everybody is. And it really, when people say you meet your closest friends in business school, that is true. And I have found that, and it has been, I will miss it when I leave.
I hear that. And Storm, how about you?
Yeah, no, definitely the community aspect for sure. When we first got started, we began with an SGI course where we went off site. We became like a group of best friends because it was a very intensive program that we did for our first class. And then you built those friendships and those relationships that really have strived throughout this first year for me.
Awesome. And Greg?
Sure. I'll add, what surprised me was the amount of group work that we have. Perhaps the first course that Storm just mentioned, SGI, should have set the tone for the rest of the program. But for example, I'm in my intro to marketing course right now, and I think all but 2 or 3 of the assignments are group based. So it's been a really incredible opportunity for me to meet different study teams and just to get to know members of my cohort better.
Awesome. And I like all of you all's answer, especially about community. So all of it kind of does match up because it's all about working within groups or a project or the community. So you're working with others, within McDonough, whether it's within the MBA program or just, staff, being a part of events or projects or teams, and even with the faculty. So that is awesome and great to hear. So let's move to our next question. I want to know, like, how do you navigate the balance between work and school and your personal life? Like, what do you wish you could have done differently, if anything?
I would say it was definitely a hard balance at first. Being, especially with SGI, my biggest advice is just take it slow. It does get better. Having that kind of just hit you right in the beginning was very hard to balance. However, it gets better, and you do have the resources in order to be able to handle the stress and the work all together, and you lean on your classmates because it really does make all of the difference. If I wish I could have just taken it easier. I really, I was so stressed out and so wound up, and my advice is just, you will do the assignments, you will get the work done, lean on your community, lean on your classmates. That will make all the difference.
Awesome. That was great. Jessica, Greg, what about you?
Yeah, I think quite frankly, you have to make some sacrifices to make time for everything. I'm 2 semesters in, and I've gotten into the Flex program specifically, and I've given up time on weekdays, Friday nights, Saturday nights to take online quizzes or to do homework assignments that are due at different deadlines. So be prepared to be flexible with that. And sometimes it'll feel like you don't have enough time for everything, and you will settle in, especially in your second semester. I think you'll get the hang of things.
Thank you, Greg. What about you, Storm?
I think if I could go back and restart, I would have looked for something to manage my time a little bit more efficiently. I think through SGI and through Mod 1, I was looking for something to really develop my schedule, to understand my schedule. And I've really found, I guess you would say, my stride essentially at the start of the spring semester with navigating through different like calendars that have, AI that's built into it, so it builds my schedule more efficiently. I've worked across different ways to just simply manage my time better. And like Gregory was mentioning, giving up time on weekdays and weekends, you have to find that balance. But once you find that balance and you start to rely on your classmates, you really find your stride in how you can manage work, school, and your personal life.
That's awesome and I appreciate you all like being super clear and real on this answer, because it's like, it's not going to be all fun. Like, yes, it is a goal that you're achieving. This is a great program. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to build relationships, be a part of a great community, and, build relationships, for the rest of your life, potentially. But hey, this is not going to be easy. And, I'm sure the audience is going to appreciate that as well. So I want to gain a realistic expectation of life as an MBA student. So how much time do you actually invest outside of your class on readings, group projects, homework, and other coursework that you're assigned throughout your courses? And we can start with, let's double back with Storm.
Yeah, so realistically, I have a very intensive job with being in medical device sales. I'm usually in hospitals from 6:30 in the morning until 5 p.m. at night. So I usually invest as an MBA student with my readings, working with my groups, about 2.5 to 3 hours a day. And I really try to put a hard stop at 3 hours, just because if I'm constantly reading and rereading, all of that information is really not going to take for me after I've had such a long day with work. So I've really tried to set a hard stop. on some of those days. And then on the weekends, I just start earlier. I'd like to have my personal life outside of school and especially outside of work. So I really try to start a little bit earlier on the weekends, just so I get to when it gets time, when you can go out and enjoy the weather that we have in
Right.
Washington, D.C., I can get out and move about.
Yeah, awesome. That was great. What about you, Greg?
Yeah, I'll echo that. I think before the program, I've never set alarm clocks on the weekends, but that's new to me, just to make my days longer. But one thing I wanted to touch on was really you get out of the program what you put into it. Quite frankly, there are lots of classes where the reading might not be required for a particular assignment, but it's going to contribute to the classroom discussion if you do so. So it's really up to you, like what level of commitment you would like to invest into that experience.
And Jessica, let's hear from you.
Yeah, but to echo on both of them, I would say the weeks ebb and flow. Some weeks are a lot more than 4 hours a day, or I would say like 20 hours a week, giving the weekend and all that. And then some weeks it's easier. So especially your first semester, it's going to feel like a lot of work all at once, and you're going to invest a lot more time. But then once you get in the swing of things and you understand how to handle your classes and you understand how to manage your time, that goes down. And like Greg said, I think you do get what you put in. So there were weeks where I was like, I can't do these extra readings. There's no way. And then there's weeks where I did them and I learned more, and I took out of it a lot more. So that's kind of up to you.
Awesome. That's great feedback on like how to utilize your time wisely on, your assignments and things that, is offered to you throughout the program. Thank you for that. So how would you describe the school's learning culture and environment? Is it competitive or collaborative? And Greg, let's start with you.
Sure. I think this one is a very clear answer. I think anyone you talk to, current or alum, is going to echo that collaborative piece. Especially compared to, given that I work in admissions, I think compared to other schools in our ranking, we definitely have a much more collaborative culture. I've seen it happen in my group projects. I've heard about it happening on the recruitment front. If people are competing for a particular job, and one person gets it, the other person is not left to be searching on their own. Like the person who got the job will help tap into their new network, help lift their classmates up. I'll also echo that this manifests itself in our interactions with alumni. So if you cold email alums, like the response rate is actually incredibly high. And I think that's just a testament to their willingness to, and not just willingness, but being excited to contribute back to campus.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. And Jessica, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's more, the learning culture is more collaborative than it's not competitive. It's competitive in the sense that like when we have case discussions, or like right now I'm in the leadership communications class, your classmates will push you to do the best that you can. So in that sense, it is competitive, but in a good way. But the rest, like the work that you're doing, is very collaborative. And for interviews, I mean, a lot of people interview for the same jobs, and it's not like nobody's secretive and not telling you what they heard. Like we had a shared doc that stated like all kinds of interview questions for marketing, just for everyone to be prepared. And it's just very collaborative in the sense you really do feel that we all are in this together.
Awesome. And Storm, let's hear from you.
I would definitely say it's a mix of competitive and collaborative. Collaborative being in the fact that, I can rely on my classmates. This goes back to even like the expectation of life as an MBA student. I can rely on my classmates if there's certain readings like we were talking about that we've built like a system of how to study the notes and read the readings, that I can, if I am bogged down with work, if I am completely swamped, I can rely on their notes because we all have developed a system of how to take notes. So it's collaborative, all of which from reading to recruitment to everything like that. And it's competitive is that because we all want to increase and we all want to move within our career or even career switch. So, there's been a lot of discussions like stepping outside of my normal bounds into maybe even looking into the financial industry as how to make that switch. And, I've learned from second and third year students as to the steps and how to go about that and be competitive within that career field.
I love that. It just makes me think of Hoyas helping Hoyas in a sense. So I think that's really cool. And just being pushed by your classmates, that's really cool. I love that support. So how often do you interact with the professors outside of the classroom? Do you find the professors being innovative with how you connect with them as far as virtually or in person? And let's start with Jessica.
Yeah, I think the amount that you interact with the professors is up to you. They are there. They have their office hours. Some of the professors are the most amazing people I have met. And so that's up to you how much you want to interact with them. They are available for you, and they are very, very accommodating for virtual or in person. I mean, for example, in my finance class, I had Pinkowitz, and people would go to his office hours just to talk about the stock market. I mean, nothing about class. So it is very cool in that sense. Like yesterday, I'm in the retail and luxury club, and we hosted an alumni just a talk via Zoom, and he graduated, I think, class of 11, and one of our professors was there on the Zoom just to say hi and connect with this old alumni. So it is a very unique experience with the professors.
Awesome.
Storm, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say, I interact with professors quite a bit. In my previous semester, like one of our professors had office hours on a Saturday. So they are completely innovative when it comes to being available. They meet you where you need to be met as well. I'd say that, it's kind of like what Gregory talked about earlier. You get what you put in. And if you're reaching out to these professors and they recognize the name that keeps popping up, they're going to work with you to meet you wherever you are.
And Greg, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of other points. So I think the interaction with our professors is generally a little bit more often than perhaps a bigger program. Our class for Flex is 120 people. You're split into cohorts of about 60. And you take a lot of your classes together. There's much more face time with the professor. They definitely get to know you individually. I'll also add that the professors are often involved and employed by some of the big or really renowned employers in DC. So that's another relationship that you can leverage in your potential job placement. But I find myself gravitating towards professors who have subject matter that I could apply in my day-to-day job. So I actually took a class over spring break about data visualization, and I was going to the professor outside of hours, showing him some of the things that I had built for work, and he was giving us feedback. So it was just a really positive experience overall.
Thank you for that. That's really good to know that, we have the faculty who has that open communication, whether let's meet in person or during my office hours or right after class. Oh, we can't meet in person. Let's just hop on a Zoom call or something like that. So I think that's really helpful, for a student to have that support throughout a program. All right. So what activities are you all involved in outside of class, if any, and why did you choose these particular activities? And let's start with Storm, move along to Jessica, and then Greg.
Yeah, so I'm a part of two clubs, one being the Healthcare Business Alliance Group, and the second one being the Graduate Investment Fund, which manages an active fund for Georgetown and its graduate network. I chose the HBA club because, like I said, I've worked in healthcare since undergrad, and I chose to be a part of this club because I feel like growing my network within the club and reaching out to Hoya alumni really put me in a position if I want to move forward with a healthcare career field post-graduation, that this involvement and, me stepping and going above and beyond would really work with some of those alumni. And then secondly, I chose to do the Graduate Investment Fund because I am looking to potentially career switch once I finish my Flex MBA. And I really wanted that aspect of learning how to lead a group within the financial industry. So I became a sector head, managing the technology portfolio for the Graduate Investment Fund.
Awesome. And Jessica?
Yeah, I'm involved in a lot of activities outside of class. So a good mix of social clubs and career clubs. One of the career clubs that I'm in is the marketing club, and a social club, for example, is the wine club. So I chose this mix because, obviously I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for my career, and that's what I want to focus on. And they host a lot of events that are very helpful in the career space. And I wanted to join the social clubs just to meet more people. As the guys mentioned, like, you mostly take your classes with your cohort, at least your first year or your first few semesters. So joining the social clubs are a great way to meet other people and other cohorts as well.
So my favorite club, just personally, has to be Hoyalytics. They are the data analytics club on campus. I'm in a bit of a unique position where, being a student and staff, I've actually taught classes for Hoyalytics on the softwares that I'm more familiar with, but I also attend their meetings and attend other events that I'm not as familiar with, so that I can continue to learn. But I'll give you an example. We did a big McDonough Cup last week where a lot of the cohorts squared off in different competitions, everything from tug of war to high heels race to wine tasting competition. And one element of that tournament was a data visathon. So I helped participate in that with through Hoyalytics. So that was a lot of fun.
That's really awesome to hear that you guys are, taking advantage of those clubs, and whether it's geared towards, something that, you are like a goal that you're achieving, or just, just being interested in it. So I think that's really cool. And we have so many clubs and organizations. It's like, I would want to be a part of all of them. So when you guys can actually narrow it down to like something you really want, that's really, really good. So if you could go back in time and start the program all over again, what advice would you give yourself as an incoming MBA student? And let's start with Greg.
That's a good question. I think for me specifically, I would have loved to be more strategic about my time, definitely organize it better, but also to spend more time connecting with my classmates early on. I felt like I didn't maybe do that enough until later. And you don't want to be the person who, people are asking a couple weeks in, like, oh, they're in our cohort. So I would just encourage you to be active, be social, and just make the most of these relationships.
That's a great point, Greg. Let's hear from you, Storm.
If I could go back, I would say it's not all on me. We're so collaborative at Georgetown that, I shouldn't feel the need to reread again after that, when I can rely on my classmates to maybe break it down and give me a different perspective instead of me rereading 5 times. I feel like if I could go back and start from where I'm at today, that's something that I would rely on all the way through this MBA.
Awesome. Jessica?
I would say I agree with Storm and Gregory, but to add to that, just breathe. I think when I started the program, I was so stressed out and freaking myself out every day with every new challenge. And, looking back on my first year almost coming to an end, I got through every single challenge, and you all will as well. We all do. You all will. You have a community, you have help. So breathe. It will work out. It is great. And like Gregory said, you don't want to be the person that no one knew was in your cohort. I was that person for the first few weeks because I was so worried about everything else. So make your friends, talk to your classmates. This is a unique time in your life. Just enjoy it, and you will get through it.
Yeah, that's great information. Like, start out, attempting to build those relationships, introducing yourself, starting to, just in case you might end up on the same team for a project, anything. So getting that started early is super beneficial. Thank you for that, guys. So next question. Have you developed any relationships with any alumni during your time at McDonough? And let's start with Storm.
Yeah, I would say that I have. I had the chance to sit on a healthcare business alliance panel at one of our former alumni who's became very successful through the consulting industry and then becoming an entrepreneur. And developing this relationship has led to many successful introductions for me in my current business field. So I'm all for developing the relationships. And like I said, being a part of these clubs introduce you to not only current Hoyas, but posts or alumni, and it sets you up for the future.
Jessica?
Yeah, I've definitely developed great relationships with alumni. I think somebody mentioned earlier that the response rate for cold emails is so good, and that is very true. I used to cold email people on LinkedIn all the time before business school and never got responses. And now the responses that I get from alumni are amazing. And the amount of alumni that I have just cold emailed, but now have talked to probably once a week and once a month, like just so much, it's crazy. Like they've been in your shoes, they want to help, and they are so successful and so humble. And I love the alumni.
Awesome. Let's hear from you, Greg.
Sure. I think the alumni are involved at every level. I think if you look at socially, academically, professionally, they are a part of every branch. So I've actually had classes where the professors bring in, former students of theirs to give a speech on what they're doing now or how they originally experienced the class you were in. I'll say socially, there's a weekly sort of, well, it's a party on campus. It's called KEGS, which stands for Keeping Everyone at Georgetown Social. I know that those are often sponsored by club. Often they'll have alumni come join that on a weekly basis. And then professionally too, I know the Career Center involves the alumni in job placements and recruiting. So they're just a big part of campus life.
Awesome. That's good to know that we have alumni that stays, interactive and stay in touch with the community, after they've finished, their degree. That's really helpful. And just even giving back, having those conversations, even being part of events and things like that. So I know the community really appreciate them, still having a hand in that. Now, coming up on our last question, what advice do you have for incoming MBA students, for those who are considering applying or those who, have applied and are coming into, the class in the fall? And let's start with Jessica.
Yeah, I would say stay organized. And also something that I wanted to touch on is really leverage your background when you start recruiting. Even if your background had nothing to do with anything with what you want to go into, if you're a career switcher, leverage your background. I was also always very hesitant about leveraging my background because it's so different from marketing and what I wanted to go into. But I found that leveraging my background and being proud of it actually helped me a lot. And I developed great skills in my background and now skills with the MBA program. So really leverage that.
Great. That was awesome. Thank you, Jessica. And let's hear from Storm.
Yeah. So for incoming MBA students, there's so much that what Georgetown has to offer. And, being here in Washington, D.C., I chose Georgetown because of what it offers on an international community. You have world leaders that come here. You have big time alumni that constantly comes to campus. So all of these introductions that you can have and you can make, it's so important and beneficial to your future career that Georgetown just offers such a wide scope. And I chose Georgetown because I want to move abroad, and the international community that Georgetown has and powers through is absolutely amazing. And I look forward to post-graduation.
And Greg.
I think my advice would be, don't be afraid to ask for help. Nobody here expects you to do everything alone, and there will be times where some of your team will be busy and might not be able to commit as much time to something, but you'll pay it forward when you need that same favor. So teams lift each other up, and yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Awesome. That was great advice from all of you, leveraging your background about our diverse and international community, about pretty much our global MBA in a sense. And also, asking for help. We all need it. We all need individuals. We can't do everything by ourselves. So I think that was awesome, awesome advice. And I thank you all. Thank you, Jessica, Greg, and Storm for, sharing your time at Georgetown McDonough. I hope everyone attending took away some helpful information on how you can kind of make it all happen, while getting your MBA, whether in person or online. And now we can go into a brief Q&A. As I stated before, you could definitely utilize the Q&A feature to drop questions that you have. I do see that we have a couple questions already there, so I'll read them aloud and then we'll see who kind of want to answer the question between Jessica, Greg, or Storm. So first question is this program ideal for someone who wants to work full-time upon graduating from a 4-year college? I'd like to take that one. Greg.
I can take, I think that's, if I'm reading this correctly, it's sort of somewhat an admissions question. So the program does expect you to have at least a couple years of work experience coming in. However, we do have a program, if you are in undergrad, we do have a program called the MAP, the MAAP, that is the MBA Advanced Access Program. That is for current undergrads who are looking to do an MBA in the future. And essentially what that is it's a deferred offer of admission, and it will be contingent on you completing a couple years work experience out of school at some firm, and then coming back to us to take your MBA at that point. So I hope that's the context that you meant it in, but I think that the program certainly offers great career resources for anyone doing a postgrad degree.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. So another question that we have from Lawrence. Thank you, Lawrence, for being here. Would love to ask the panelists, what have you given a considerable amount of thought to as late as you went through this last month of the program? What have you given? Okay. Did we grab that question?
Yeah, I'll take that. I think, the last month of the program, coming up on year 2, seeing the classes that are available after I've already taken most of the core requirement classes, I think, it's really setting up like which way do I want to go with my career field. I can really start to align with like real estate, or if I really want to look into the financial markets, I'm eligible after taking the core classes to hedge fund investing, fintech. It's like you really get this wide scope of how do you want to develop your MBA for you. And after taking all of the core classes in the first year, it's kind of like a whole new world moving into the second year and seeing the classes after those core classes as to how do you want to build this MBA and how do you want to move forward with Georgetown.
Awesome. Thank you, Storm. So our next question, what was your most difficult class or a class that really stood out? Jessica, you want to take that on?
Yes, I will take that on. The most difficult class I had was SGI, which will be your first class. It is a very intensive class in a very short amount of time, but I think it was very, looking, in the midst of it, it's not fun, but looking back on it, like you learn a lot, and it's not just learning, you're not just learning the concepts of the class, you're learning how to present, how to work with a team, how to build an entire project in a few days. So it was tough, but I think it really does. I think the program is designed very well, that is your first class. It will prepare you for the rest of your classes.
Thank you for that. All right, next question from Luke. Hi, hello, Luke. How are you? What specific tools do you use to help manage your time? Who wants to grab that?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
We both good, really. Honestly, everything at Georgetown Email, Calendar all operates off G Suite. So I find Google Calendar to be incredibly helpful with blocking off my time. I've actually, I add study blocks now to my calendar just so others are aware of when I'm not available. And that's something that I've really never done before grad school, was like actually blocking my study time on the calendar. But that's just one way that I stay organized.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to add to that.
Yeah, add
I
to
took
it.
one of my consulting classes. We talked a lot about AI, and it really led to this deep dive into what AI has to offer. And one of the specific tools, because we do use G Suite and we use it quite a bit, that I found extremely helpful in building and really helping with my time management skills was actually this calendar called Motion AI. And from there, I go in and I can put priorities on different class related things. I can go in there and I can put priority on readings, quizzes, and everything like that to really keep me on schedule. And like Gregory was talking about, I can make those time blocks to really move us forward. And it's just really helped with my time management overall ever since I started using it in February after the class introduced me to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Storm. And Jessica, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to say my Google Calendar is my everything. I mean, it's just really planning my day out, blocking study times, blocking times for when I wanted to try out a new restaurant with a friend, just putting in everything that I'm doing keeps you organized. A nice little reminder in 10 minutes, you have something. So Google Calendar will be your best friend.
And I'll add real quick all the integrations that come with the extension of that: Google Docs, Google Sheets, every Google Meet, everything is built into your calendar. So it just makes things really quick to access, allows simultaneous editing, which is especially important for group projects. So definitely use those if you can.
Thank you for that. And then we have a couple more questions. Have you noticed a change in the culture of the program as new cohorts enter and older cohorts graduate? If so, how do you retain the strong community? Who would like to grab that one?
I can try. I don't know if any of us are ever around long enough to see like a multi-cohort pass through. But I think that because the experience is driven by a commitment to Georgetown values, I think everyone really is there to be collaborative. Like that part does not dry up when a new cohort comes in. I think that the values of the program also attracts a particular type of student, really reinforces itself throughout the education.
Awesome. Anyone else want to add to that, Storm or Jessica?
I haven't been around long enough. I've only seen a couple cohorts.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, we do have a couple more. I did see one more pop up. So is marketing involved in the global stage, or is the international presence more relevant to other industry specializations within the program? Storm, you want to take that on?
Yeah, so the marketing has been it's quite involved both on the global stage and the international presence. I mean, it really goes both back and forth. We've been doing different case studies from US based companies to global based companies. For example, in my most recent class, we just finished a presentation about BMW and how BMW is moving forward and with moving toward a greener background. So, it's focused on those international companies, but it's also focused very much on the US based companies. And I think something that you can really look forward to if you do decide to come to Georgetown is the global business experience, where you going into your second and third year, there's the opportunity to go present in front of a group at a particular company in some other country. So it's really focused on that global, and it's also focused on the international stage as well.
Thank you, Storm. So our next question, what will you miss the most about the program? Have you found like a favorite part about it so far? That's actually a great question from the audience. Thank you, John, for that question.
I can jump in that. I'm gonna miss the community. You see the same people every day, and you seem to see the same faculty, and it kind of makes you feel like a little bit like you're back in college or you're back in high school, like a little bit out of the real world, and it's really nice in that way. And I think I will really miss that personally.
Awesome, thank you. And we have 2 more questions and then we'll move along with the programming. Next question, can you please talk about the typical class structure such as number of classes per week and hours per week in the class? Greg, you want to take that one on?
Yeah, I can at least cover the flex aspect of it. So the way when you enter into a flex program, you'll be asked to join one of 2 cohorts, and your classes will either be on Mondays and Wednesdays, that pairing, or Tuesdays and Thursdays. But on both sets there, the classes are at the same evening times. So they run from 6:30 to 9:20, and it's 1 class for each block. So that's what your typical week looks like. As far as the semesters are divided into what they call modules. So some classes will last the entire semester, whereas others will only last for 1 month. So whereas our Thursday class this semester has been marketing for the entire time, the Tuesday one has actually switched between accounting classes. So it's, at least for Flex, it's never more than twice a week, unless you choose to overload, because there is some flexibility there. Or if you wanted to take 1 class in the semester and take more than 3 years to do the Flex program, that's also an option.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. And our last question, how do you manage your time with work during exams week? For example, do you have to schedule an exam time slot ahead of time, or can you take exams anytime during midterms or finals week? Who wants to take that on? Last question.
I can do this one. The program office is pretty proactive with planning the exam times in advance. I don't believe there's much flexibility to take an exam at another time. Now, if there's extenuating circumstances, if there's someone from the program office on the call who wants to correct me, then please go ahead. I'm not sure what the policies are in that situation, but I know that when you join the class, the exam time is on the syllabus for 6 to 12 weeks later.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. That was great, guys. Oh my goodness, this was a great student experience panel, and it was great questions from the virtual audience. I really appreciate that. And then a lot of the names, who asked questions are super familiar. So I'm glad that you guys, joined us this evening for the start of the Flex MBA Online Summit. And so thank you again, Jessica, Storm, Greg, for joining us for the student experience panel. I definitely appreciate you, and I'm sure the virtual audience enjoyed it as well. Got some great insightful information on applying, or just in particular, like how you make it happen, as mentioned earlier, and going along with applying for the program and how it's actually going to be and planning it into their lives. So I do appreciate that, and thank you so much. Now, on to the second portion of the programming, the McDonough Career Center panel. You'll hear from a career coach and MBA alumni to help you explore industries and techniques. I'd like to introduce the Director of Career Curricula and Communications for McDonough Career Center, Carrie Kilwell-Slack. Hi, Carrie. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Brianna. It's a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me and the panel. We're really excited to share what our experiences.
Yes, of course. Awesome. So yep, we could definitely get started. I do see the panelists will be here, or we're listening to the student experience panel, so we can definitely get started with the McDonough Career Center panel. So thank you so much for being here, guys.
All right, great. Thanks so much for that introduction. So yes, good evening, everyone. Glad you could join us tonight. Tonight, as Brianna mentioned, we're joined by 2 Flex alums who have launched fantastic careers based on their McDonough MBAs. So I want to get their experience, as well as one of our career coaches in the McDonough Career Center, to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we offer to Flex students and how we see career support being provided for students in our Flex online program. So to kick things off, I'll do some introductions. I'll ask our panelists to go around and share a little bit about their name, their career journey, and maybe their favorite thing about McDonough, so you can get a little bit of flavor of what the experience is like. Lexi, let's start with you.
Yes, hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I am Lexi Ahmad. I graduated from McDonough with my MBA from what was then called the evening program before it rebranded to the Flex program. I finished in 2021, and I was actually a full-time employee at Georgetown University throughout my experience of my MBA. And I worked in the neurology clinical trials department at the MedStar Georgetown University Hospital. So that's how my career really started out, in research. And I've always been passionate about healthcare, you know, and advancing science. And through the MBA program, I was able to land a job at Biogen through their post-MBA leadership development rotational program. So that's where I work now, and I'm about to wrap up the program in a few months.
Great. And favorite McDonough?
Oh yeah, favorite McDonough. So I've been a Hoya for a very long time. I did my undergrad at Georgetown as well. Like I mentioned, I worked there. So, you know, what was really special to me about the McDonough program was just seeing how much that sense of community continued into the MBA program. And that was really my favorite thing, was the students, you know, my colleagues, and also the professors, like that sense of passion and support for one another throughout this program. I made fantastic friends and, you know, long-lasting professional relationships as well. So I've got to say, like, that really stood out for me, and it was a highlight.
Fantastic. That's definitely an important part of who we are
Yes.
and about the world. Thanks. John, how about you?
Hey, hi all. My name is John Fernandez. I graduated in 2016. My career path has been kind of all over the place. I started as a data scientist at IBM, wanted to really broaden my knowledge and get a little bit broader experience. So I went back to Georgetown, where I discovered a passion for entrepreneurship. That led me to Amazon in Seattle. I found a really good fit as part of their finance leadership development program. And so I've been there for the last 7 years, recently switched over into a product manager position. My favorite thing about McDonough is definitely the friendships that I made. I still talk to people almost weekly. I was talking with a couple of people from my class last night, matter of fact. So that's just the kind of place Georgetown is. You meet people that you're gonna want to know for the rest of your life, even being out here in Seattle.
That's fantastic to hear. Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. And Maureen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Cleary. I am one of the coaches in the McDonough Career Center. I work specifically with MBA students. Within the Career Center, we are industry aligned. My industries are financial services, real estate, and hospitality, although we also have an open coaching model, so you can always meet with anybody on the team. I've been with McDonough for 7 years. It goes quickly. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm actually a Georgetown undergrad alumna, not from the business school, but from the College of Arts and Sciences. And I have my MBA from the Wharton School. Prior to coming to McDonough, I actually had a 20-year career in financial services. And I have many favorite things about Georgetown. One of it's just being able to work at the place where you went to school, which is truly an amazing experience. And I mean, I love the physical presence of Georgetown and McDonough, but I mean, I do think the people and the spirit of the school is far surpasses anything.
Great, thank you all. As you all can hear in the audience, there's a lot of Georgetown love and loyalty in this virtual room right now. And I think that will come through our conversation today. So John and Lexi, particularly, you know, as you think back, when you were in the shoes of our prospective students in the audience and contemplating your MBA, you know, you had full-time jobs, thinking about how you would balance this sort of part-time program. What made you choose Georgetown, and how did you see your career goals being realized through the MBA? John, Lexi, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be happy to go first. So I really chose Georgetown because, you know, obviously like I said, I worked at Georgetown too. So just the ability to be able to go straight from my office, which was literally next to, you know, the building that you can see behind Maureen, that was really, really key. And I also appreciated about the program for those of us who were part-time, that in order to be in the program, everyone was working full-time. So that really stood out to me too, that, you know, we were all going to be on an even playing field together, that we all had these competing priorities and we all understood where we were coming from. And it just helped people relate to one another in terms of scheduling, but also the ability to develop those professional relationships. You know, the friendships are going to be there also, but the ability to actually understand and learn about new opportunities from one another in and outside of the classroom that really stood out to me because the quality and the, the type of people that come to this program, it's so diverse. I was really, really drawn to that ability to just learn about things I had no idea about from my peers as well as the professors.
Yeah, and for me, let's see, I was definitely drawn to Georgetown for the global focus the program had, bringing in people from all across the world and various disciplines. And it was close to work. I enjoyed my career, and so I didn't want to leave and put that on pause while I went back to school full time. And so really, I only applied to Georgetown. It was the only school that I was interested in going to. I wanted to go to a place where it'd be internationally recognized. There's a lot of good schools in the DC area, but I think if you're potentially going to move abroad, or Georgetown is a name that people are going to recognize most places.
Great. And I appreciate that comment about, wanting to maintain the momentum with your career. And we hear that a lot from Flex students. They don't want to take the pause necessarily, want to keep going with these great building blocks that they have in place. And we actually hear that from employers too, when it comes to post-MBA recruitment. They actually look at the Flex and students and say, lean into your time management skills. It's really impressive what you've accomplished, earning your degree while working full time.
Absolutely.
That's something to be very proud of.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how the career process worked for you all. How did your thoughts about your career evolve and change over the course of your MBA? John, maybe should we go first?
Yeah, happy to. So I came in with the hypothesis that I think in Wall Street sounded pretty good, investment banking, and after meeting some of those professionals and doing a few interviews, realized that it wasn't really going to be a great fit for just my innate skills, talents, and interest. And so that's kind of where I discovered, entrepreneurship. This is more of kind of what I naturally am more inclined to do. And so that was overall one of the best parts about Georgetown is the exposure. I mean, you're exposed to so many different things that you really have the opportunity to assess what is going to be the best fit for you, and then have the confidence to move forward on that career path. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, great. I can relate to a lot of that as well. So when I came into the program, I was really, to be honest with you, I was in that camp of people that really didn't know what they wanted to do with this, but I knew, and I had the support from my manager, who was also my mentor, at the time, that, hey, I think this would be a great opportunity for you. So I just went all in and was really open-minded about what I wanted to get out of this. I would have been happy, still working at the job that I was at, but maybe, in a higher level or something. But my mind and the opportunities were really, really opened up to me throughout my time at McDonough when I learned about the type of program that I'm in now, which is a leadership development program. And this whole idea that, with a different type of background, I could use the MBA to pivot. And so that's what I ended up doing. I'm still in the healthcare sector, but I pivoted from, nonprofit and the research world to commercialization. So I just, it was really great to be somewhere where I was challenged and exposed to so many different concepts. And I think something that helped me is that actually there was no specific healthcare track. So I was taking classes that were in all kinds of, areas, like national security was one of my favorite classes. I'm obviously not doing that now, but just getting that really well-rounded experience helped me understand that there are so many possibilities out there.
Great. And Maureen, from where you sit, you've seen lots of students like Lexi and John who come in and are career advancers or career switchers. Tell us a little about some of the themes that you've seen and students being successful from the Flex for Evening program.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different examples. I mean, certainly there's a lot of examples like Lexi, like John, of the Flex students who go through the program and really are focused on making a change at the end of their program. And one of the things that's important to know is that in the final year of your MBA, we do not differentiate between full-time and Flex students. You all have full access to the MBA Career Center and all the recruitment that happens. So, if you are interested in one of these leadership development programs or consulting or, some of those kind of standard post-MBA roles, absolutely, there's a set path for you. But in addition to that, I mean, I've worked with students who are making changes during their career. One of the things that I find particularly interesting about working with the FX students is, everyone is so different because you're working professionals. it's very important for us to understand where you are. We've had students who come in as soon as they start the program. They're like, I hate my job. I have to make a change right now. Can you help me? And of course, we help with them. I've had students on their way to classes just stop by the MBA Career Center because they've had a really bad day. And so they just need to talk about it. But I've also had people who are very, methodical. One of the industries I cover is real estate. And I had one, FX student who was trying to transition from, an operations manufacturing role into real estate. And he just came in and we met once every 3 weeks and we just went through the process and he was very successful. And it just took time and really doing that. So the key is customizing our approach to what you need at any given time.
Yes,
I think
Kira, I can probably
Yeah, go
add, I met with one of the mentors from the Career Center for, it's probably a little bit over a year, a gentleman that had 50 plus years of industry experience. And he was so helpful sitting down, talking me through the entire just thought process. Why do you think this is the right path for you? Okay, let's take a look at your resume. You should talk to this person, you should talk to that person. He probably introduced me to over a dozen different people, from VPs at Goldman Sachs to people downtown that I could talk to. So that was definitely a highlight from my time at McDonough.
That's great to hear, and a fantastic transition. I was going to ask, how did you all use the Career Center while you were at McDonough? So it sounds like, John, you had a great mentor and coach to navigate through some of the processes. Were there other resources you tapped into to help you with your recruitment?
Pretty sure I used the resume review, mock interviews. Also, you spent a lot of time going through all the job postings that came through from the Career Center. I did take a look outside, but I really focused on the Career Center pipeline because there's just so many great opportunities coming through Georgetown's Career Center. And those opportunities, by the way, you can't get outside. Like you can't apply to the Amazon FLDP program except through about 20 or so top tier MBA schools. And so you really get access to jobs that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise.
Yeah, I would echo that 100%. I mean, using the McDonough Career View portal to learn about opportunities and apply to jobs. I mean, that was really, towards the end of my time, but I would like to say that we, were encouraged to start thinking about and start mapping out what our career after the MBA would look like from day one, from orientation. We had a coach, we would have these like Saturday sessions, everybody had to get up early and come in on a Saturday, but they were so helpful, like once a semester or something like that, where we were really encouraged to understand what good networking looks like and, how to build your network so that when the time comes and you are applying to jobs or looking to pivot or what have you, that you've actually built a relationship and you're not just obviously this person calling up out of the blue and looking for some advice. So I really appreciated, like I said, from the beginning, from day zero, that was something we were told to start thinking about and changing our mindset and doing that really thoughtfully, professionally, and the best way to represent ourselves, but also McDonough, because as others have said, like this is a really well-known program that carries a lot of weight behind, being a part of this program and speaking to others. So I really appreciated that, even though I didn't really think about pivoting until like my last year of my program, I was prepared because I had that support from the beginning.
And
That's
one other
awesome.
thought that wasn't immediately obvious to me was if you're doing the 2-year full-time program, the internship application process starts, at least when I was there, like immediately when you come to campus. And so there really isn't much time to explore or figure out where you want to apply. You pretty much need to know as soon as you show up. With the Flex program, you have time to explore and figure it out. So I much preferred the timeline of the Flex program, where you have a year and a half to really explore, take some classes, and figure out where you want to steer your career.
I love that lens on things, because sometimes we hear students say, oh no, I won't have the internship. How am I going to make this pivot?
Yeah.
But we see students every year who successfully do it. And there are great tips that both of you have indicated, the networking, the being intentional, exploring, being thoughtful. Maureen, anything else you've noticed in terms of students who want to make pivots? What's good strategies?
No, I mean, start early. I'm always frustrated if FX students comes to me and says, so I'm graduating in 2 months. and I'm wondering if I should explore a career. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll help you. But, meanwhile, I have students who are graduating next year who have come in and started working with me. And so, we're a resource for you. Use us while you can. As I said, we have an open coaching model. You can meet with all of the coaches on the teams. You can attend events. You don't have to wait until your final year to think about it. Like John said, you have time. Take advantage of it.
Great. I do see some questions starting to come in the Q&A, which is great. We're going to get to those student questions soon. I have 2 more, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. So if you have questions in mind, feel free to start typing them in the chat. But for our panel, let's talk about time management for a little bit, because that definitely becomes a challenge too, as you are balancing your jobs, your academics, your personal life, and now thinking about a new career and launching that right after your MBA. What were some strategies you implemented to manage your time?
I think I can go first. So I think that first and foremost, I was very open with my manager at the time about what I was doing and how I was proactive in working with him. So he understood my time management skills. And like I said, he was very supportive of the program too. So that really helped. I think being open with your manager, because they will have an understanding of what you're going through if you let them into that process. And just planning ahead. I was at the tail end of the previous session here, and I, heard somebody mention, like, you will know what your exam schedule is going to be well in advance. So, making use of your time, mapping out your calendar well in advance. You'll know the schedule months and months ahead, and just planning around that. If you have the ability, I was in a position where some days I could take a half a day, if I had an exam or something really, really big on that day. So like I said, just that open communication with your employer is great. But if you can't do that, I have plenty of friends who did consulting, and they were working, that really difficult life as a management consultant and coming to McDonough. So I think everybody can make it work. It's just a matter of, knowing what your commitments are and planning ahead.
Yeah. Great advice.
Yeah, plus one to all of that. Gosh, it was a while ago. I'm trying to think back of what was key for me. I think having kind of a fixed schedule, so you're not having to constantly kind of adjust what's going on. Like Tuesdays I'm going to be here, Thursdays I'm going to be there, and then half a day Sunday I'm going to focus on the project or my reading for the week. I had a pretty flexible arrangement with my employer. I had a great relationship with my manager, and that helped a lot. But then there were people, like Lexi said, that didn't have that luxury, and sometimes they'd miss class, and they would figure out, what do I need to do to make this all work? Maybe they caught up with it later, or I think a few people even like deferred and backloaded their schedule and overloaded towards the end because they just weren't able to carry all the hours because there was a special project at work. So I'd say my professors were very willing to kind of work with us, and you really, in like a lot of areas, just really need to own your career and own your success, and then find a way to solve for you to be successful.
And Maureen, from your standpoint, you've mentioned starting early and planning ahead. And of course, that's always good advice. Anything else that you'd recommend around time management that you've seen be successful for students?
Yeah, as you start to hone in on things, again, planning ahead, depending on what it is you're looking for, some of the best resources are the MBA student clubs. One of the challenges, of course, is that they're designed around a full-time student schedule. So there's a lot of events that happen during the day. So if you decide you want to pursue a career in consulting, you're going to want to know about consulting day, and you're going to want to take that time off. And there's fall break, there are treks, you may need to manage your vacation. I mean, I'm an advocate of self-care and vacation and relaxing, but you may have to use some vacation time for recruitment. I have seen students who just sort of hoard vacation time because they're going to be doing actively fall recruitment in their final year, and so they just saved up the vacation time so they could take it off. So again, just be aware of what you're looking for, what the recruitment cycle is, and how you can manage the time best.
Great tips. And I think all of you have mentioned the idea of network being really important to your career and to your community, the people that surround you. John, you said you're just talking to some former classmates just the other night. And I think we hear that a lot, that the friendships that are made at McDonough are ones that last, and that when you come to points of pivot in your career and transition, your McDonough classmates are the ones you turn to first for advice, for referrals, for insights, things like that. So I'd be curious if you all could share about how the McDonough network has played into your careers and what role it's played.
I can
Lexi?
go first.
Yeah.
Sure. So something that was really, really special, to my time at McDonough, like you said, the friendships, and what really helped that start out was that we had assigned study groups. In the beginning, in our first semester, we were placed in a group of people that it is what it sounds like. These are the people that you can study with, and you're going to do your first group project with. That was a group of 5 of us. I'm still very close with all of them to this day. And what was great is that there was a good amount of intention behind how those were set up, that we all came from different backgrounds in terms of professional experiences and, future goals. So, one thing I really struggled with was like accounting. And it was great that there were a couple people in my program who were awesome at it and who I could really trust and go to and be like, I don't get it, I need help. And there's a lot of other resources for that too, but really having that trust in the beginning, because you're thrown into a lot initially that, it might be outside of your comfort zone. For instance, I really struggled with giving presentations at first, and it was really great to have that group of people that I could trust and be vulnerable with to help me and give me feedback. So that way, when I did need to take it to the next level and talk to a professor or a teacher's assistant or what have you, I felt like there was always a backup of support there through my study group. And like I said, we're still very close to this day.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so for me, John Carroll Weekend was in Seattle 2 years ago, maybe a couple of years ago. So I got to go and give tours of the Amazon campus to a lot of Georgetown alumni, and that was a really fun way to meet people from all ages and backgrounds. I've also helped a number of people that have reached out with interest, that were interested in working at Amazon, and so I've kind of helped coach them a little bit for the interview process, what to expect, how to prepare. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was on the phone with a friend talking through just where I'm at with my career and what I'm looking for my next steps. He's somebody that I trust and shares a lot of the same background and interests that I do. And so he was able to be a good sounding board for that exercise and kind of make an honest assessment of what he thought would be good and kind of what to watch out for, and kind of just guide me through that whole thought process. So definitely lots of ways to continue to stay involved and to help out the overall community.
And then, from the Career Center side, my favorite communication, whether it's a phone call or an email, is an alum saying, hey, I've got an open role and I'd like to hire a Hoya. And that happens all the time. You've heard about the love of the school, whether you're the MBA program or just, anywhere from Georgetown, there's a deep love and a trust in the quality of the education as well. And so we have a lot of alumni who want to hire our students, and sometimes they're large corporations. It could be from an Amazon, and sometimes it's somebody who's started their own business and they're like, well, I can't hire anybody full-time, but I'll take some interns for the summer. And it's really great, and it's a great community.
Yeah, that loyalty and the desire to give back is phenomenal. It's unlike anything I've seen at any other school. Truly unique to Georgetown. Well, I see we do have some questions coming in the chat. There's one about test waivers that I'm going to leave for Brianne to follow up on. We did have a student asking about what differences they can expect between the in-person experience that you all had and the online experience. Of course, the online is new, so we're not totally sure. But Lexi, so your time frame, you had the experience, I won't say misfortune, but experience of going through a year of online MBA during COVID. So maybe you could talk a little bit about your experience in the classes, and then Maureen, if you could talk about kind of how we anticipate serving online students through the Career Center.
Yes. So I was, in the height of the pandemic, finishing up my MBA. So I did have a lot of experience transitioning very, very quickly into the online, version, and seeing how that compared to being in person. I think by now, professors and people in general are much more comfortable with being on the Zoom platform and understanding what that means in terms of running a successful class or a presentation. You know, given what we have available to us, I think it can be just as interactive and just as great of an experience. I mean, at times there's certain things, no, you can't replace with being in person. There is that level of, you know, connection. But I would say in terms of what you want out of this and being able to focus and understand the content and also to connect with each other in a different way, the online, you know, opportunity can help you get there. And in certain cases, it can be just more flexible. You know, sometimes it makes actually the discussion more robust because you can spend more time getting modules out of the way and getting content out of the way. And then when you're actually together in the session, it's really focused on productive discussion and engagement with one another. So, you know, I was happy to have had the opportunity to finish my MBA, you know, online through the pandemic. And I did feel that I got, you know, just as much out of it as I had hoped for.
Great. Yeah, I think there was a lot of resilience that was shown during that time by your class particularly. And you made the best part. And we learned as a school quite a bit about online education and hopefully got better. And from what I've seen, talking to faculty, the MBA experience for the online program is going to be amazing, using the different tools that are out there. Maureen, what about careers? What do you see that looking like for a Flex Online student?
Absolutely. I think one of the things, you know, again, the pandemic proved that we can do things virtually. And so it's been, you know, this has been our first full year back in person. And it's been interesting to see employers' reactions. And so what we've seen is it's a real hybrid recruitment process. There certainly are some in-person events, but a lot of the interviews are still virtual. And I think most importantly for FX students is the high tolerance for virtual interviews. You know, so if they're interviewing and they'd like you to come in person, but you can't because you live in California and you have to work that day, there, you know, I think there will be much more accommodating. So I'm actually very optimistic that this will continue to be the case. You know, one of the things we find is events work better if they're either entirely virtual or entirely in person. There are some hybrid events, so we're always working to improve them because we want to make sure everybody has an equal experience. One of the things we've actually been having more employer presentations available to our students because they're virtual, because employers no longer have to come to us. They're just going to hold, and they're like, okay, well, we're having a multi-school event, so let's invite your students too. So I feel like the access is actually improved for students. And if it's a virtual event, it's of course open to everyone, regardless of where you physically are.
Great. Thanks for that. And John, maybe we can ask you to put your sort of employer hat on for a moment. Have you seen anything from the recruiter's side, employer side, about how students are engaging online and what that presence looks like?
Yeah, we switched over to an entirely virtual recruiting model when the pandemic hit, and we haven't fully gone back yet. I think we're still trying to figure out what a new hybrid recruiting environment will look like. From what I've heard, there's a couple different camps of thought right now, and they're debating the merits of the different options. But personally, I'm a big believer in at least a little on-campus presence, going, meeting the students, having office hours, having a presentation, making it accessible virtually as well, and even making the materials available for download if somebody wants to come back and watch later. But I think from a employer's perspective, I think it's important to show the interest and come to campus and meet, or at least be available to meet in person with the students.
Great. All right. Well, we're getting close to wrapping up. So if there are other questions, you can feel free to type in the chat now. But as we're waiting for those to come in, panelists, what other advice would you have for a student who's contemplating, thinking about this big life decision? Should I pursue an MBA, take the time, make the investment? What sorts of things should they be thinking about in making that decision?
I think for me, it was really helpful to look at, and McDonough does a great job of this, of making information available of what have people done after this program. There's a portfolio of profiles that you can look at and student spotlights and understand where people have gone. And that's really inspiring, and I think should instill a lot of confidence in people who are interested in this program. Because, as I said myself, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And through this program, I was able to really hone in new skills and new opportunities and have a really amazing job that I love and that I'm thriving in. And I feel like it's the perfect fit. So having an open mind and looking at where people have gone and, using the program to its fullest by really, like we've talked about, networking with one another and understanding what's out there and building those relationships so that, you will broaden your own opportunities. And I think McDonough really does an excellent job at facilitating that.
John?
Yeah, that was that was perfect. I'm not sure what I can really add to it. Definitely staying focused on, where does this lead? What are the outcomes? Where do I see myself? And if you start to look at where people have gone coming out of McDonough and it resonates with you, that's probably a good sign.
Yeah, and I would just build on that, to be honest with yourself about your goals. If you're doing it for the right reason, then it's a great thing to do. If you're doing it because somebody else told you that you should do it and you don't really believe them, you probably won't be successful. But just really, take a good look and understand, I think specifically for the FXO program, what your own limitations are, why you're choosing this over another one. I mean, I think it's if you're not physically in DC, but you've liked what you've heard, I think this is a fantastic option and it's one we've not had before. So we're all really excited about it. We're really looking forward to engaging with all of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we couldn't be more thrilled about the students that we're going to welcome into this program and the access it's going to create, diversifying and strengthening the Hoya community. As Lexi mentioned, we do have great data out there. The employment report is published on our website, so certainly encourage all of you to check that out if you haven't seen it already. It includes lots of statistics, if you're into numbers, to look at salary data and placements and things like that. Top employers who hire lots of our students year after year. But also there's the stories in there too. And I'd really encourage you to spend the time, get to know some of our graduates and current students and the choices that they've made around their careers and the doors that have been opened to them. I think it's really quite inspiring. Well, with that, I think we're going to turn things back over to Brianna.